What USAID gives to whom? USAID has been a major contributor to health and population related projects to India in the last 2 decades. Since 2001, USAID has disbursed a total $2.8 billion in official developmental assistance to India, a program to explore the creation of secure 5G open radio access networks (ORAN) for India as part of the United States Indo-Pacific Strategy, initiatives for clean air and water and sanitation, and dozens of health projects will come to a halt in India following an order of Trump administration. Executive order titled Reevaluating and Realigning United States Foreign Aid. The order seeks to end foreign aid but disband and uh, and all but disband the U.S. Agency for International Development. USAID has been a major contributor to health and population-linked projects in India over the last 2 decades. In recent years, it has focused on building systems in India as part of a partnership strategy drawn up in 2022 to counter China in the Indo-Pacific. In 2022, USAID was fourth among providers of the official development assistance to India with a contribution of $228 million after Japan $2.97 billion, European Union institutions $383.5 million and Germany $230.235 million. According to OECD, a program to explore the creation of a secure 5G open radio access network 5G Open Radio Access Network for India as part of United States Indo-Pacific Strategy, initiatives for clean air and water and sanitation and dozens of health projects have come to an halt following the order of USAID. In 2022, USAID was fourth among providers of official developmental assistance to India with contributions of $228 million after Japan, European Union institutions and Germany. Data on foreignassistance.gov government joint website of USAID and US Department of State that details US non-defense foreign assistance through government and NGOs shows that USA has disbursed $2.8 billion in official development assistance to India since 2001. The largest aid packets came over 2022 and 2023, $228 million and $175 million respectively. In 2024, $151 million has been disbursed to India until December 2019 when the site was last updated, a significant increase in USAID allocation to an economic support fund to India after the COVID-19 pandemic, $148 million in 22 and $81 million in 23 was the main reason. US aid to India reached all-time highs over the last 3 years. These were the first since 2001 to 8 period when total annual disbursements to India exceeded $100 million. When the bulk of annual USAID funding in 2001-2 was food aid and commodity assistance, the subsequent years saw a focus on the health and population category through allocations for polio eradication, maternal health, HIV/AIDS, and tuberculosis control programs. To 2024, $80 million of the $151 million disbursed to India by USAID in 2024 went to the health and population category, with $42.99 million for basic health programs, including $16 million for COVID-19. The next highest allocation was to maternal and child health and family planning, followed by environmental programs. 2023 of this $175 million disbursed by USAID to India Health and Population got $120 million with $83.22 million for basic health, including $54 million for COVID-19. Maternal and child health got $16.28 million, HIV/AIDS $12.13 million, and environmental protection $9.62 million. $180 million of the $228 million disbursed by USAID was for the health and population category, including $140 million for basic health. Around $25 million was given for maternal and child health, $10.57 million for HIV/AIDS, and $7.18 million for environmental protection. In its effort to stop the US economy from hemorrhaging resources amid growing debt, the Trump administration has gone after USAIDs and its funding initiatives with a sledgehammer. The impact will be felt to underdeveloped and developing countries in Asia and Africa, including India, especially in those of health and social sector areas in which the Indian government backed funding is limited. Tuberculosis Breaking the Barriers, a program to increase knowledge about TB in the poorest regions of Karnataka, Telangana, Bihar, and Assam, will be a key project that will be hit. Over 22-23 period, USAID provided $7 million to the program. HIV/AIDS, USAID and PEPFAR President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief has been major contributors to the global fight against HIV/AIDS. The mission is currently under threat because of the Trump administration disbanding and abandoning USAID. We are unclear what will happen, but the disruption that has already taken place will manifest itself in lives lost and prevention of onward transmission of HIV infections. The German Consul General in Bengaluru, Achim Burkhardt, said at the recent public lecture that the cutting of USAID funds means losing lives. In Zambia alone, 150,000 people are in desperate need of HIV medication, in the absence of which they will die. The rich countries have the responsibility to support the countries that are not able to support themselves, with at least 50% of the world's population having no access to safe, affordable, timely healthcare services. Delivering healthcare remains an urgent task. On February 13, US federal court stayed the January 20 executive order to halt foreign aid. The Trump administration appealed at the US Supreme Court and argued 5,800 foreign aid awards have been evaluated and 500 have been retained. In a 5-4 verdict on March 5, court rejected the government's request to cancel February Courts rejected the government's request to cancel the February 13 order of the federal court. Pashu Ausadi Initiative for the Health of Livestock. The government will open Pashu Ausadi stores across the country to provide affordable generic veterinary medicines for livestock to people engaged in animal husbandry and dairying. The Pashu Ausadi initiative is the part of revised livestock health and disease control program, which was approved by the Union Cabinet chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday. LHDCP Livestock Health and Disease Control Program has an overall outlay of 3,800 crore for 24-25 and 25-26. Of this, 75 crore has been provided for good quality and affordable generic veterinary medicine and incentive for sale of medicines under the Pashu Aushadhi component. The initiative has been conceptualized on the lines of the existing Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Kendras, who provide generic medicines at affordable prices to bring down healthcare budget of every citizen of India. Generic medicines are non-branded drugs which are marketed under a non-proprietary and or approved name rather than a proprietary or brand name. More than 10,000 Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Kendras are currently functional, according to the Department of Pharmaceuticals under the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. As per 20th Livestock Census, India's livestock population stood at 5535.78 million in 2019. This included a total bovine population including cattle, buffalo, mithun and yak. According to the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying, the productivity of livestock is impacted adversely due to diseases like foot and mouth disease, brucellosis, PPR, cerebrospinal fluid, lumpy skin disease, etc. While measures such as vaccination drives have been taken proactively, While measures such as vaccination drives have been taken proactively, much remains to be done. The significant portion of the out of pocket expenditure of farmers goes into buying medicines to treat their cattle, and other animals for illnesses. Implementing livestock health disease control program can help reduce their losses. The Pashu Aushadhi stores will be run by cooperative societies and Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samriddhi Kendras. The Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairying will be release guidelines for their functioning, a source said. The Pashu Aushadhi Kendras will also sell eth- ethno-veterinary medicines which are based on traditional beliefs and indigenous knowledge and practices. The National Dairy Development Board has compiled a list of ethno-veterinary formulations for major ailments in bovines, including treatments for mastitis, FMD disease lesions, fevers, and worms. Swing refers to lateral movement of the cricket ball in air before it lands on the pitch. It is essentially a product of air pressure differential on either side of the ball. A thin layer of air forms along the ball surface after it is released by the bowler, but the so-called boundary layer must separate from the surface at some point. Where the separation occurs on either side of the ball determines the air pressure on that side. Bowlers generally tilt the seam towards one direction or the other. In a new ball, the raised seam disturbs the airflow on the side towards which it is tilted. This turbulent flow on the seam side sticks to the ball's surface longer and travels faster than the smoother laminar flow on the other side. According to Bernoulli's principle, faster traveling air on the seam side results in a decrease of air pressure on that side, making the ball swing in that direction. In theory, new ball is that new ball that is held straight with seam perfectly aligned with to the direction it is traveling will not swing because the airflow on both sides of the ball is even. What has been discussed so far is conventional swing, which generally occurs with a new ball. Things get more interesting when the ball gets older. Its lacquer wears off and its surface gets more abrasive. This is when the ball starts to reverse, that is, move in the direction opposite to the seam side. From the moment they are handed the ball, the fielding team makes efforts to shine the one side. Consequently, as the ball gets older, one side is smoother than the other. That said, the so-called shiny side is nonetheless rougher than a new ball. This means that this side still generates sticky turbulent airflow. However, the rougher sides generate even more turbulent airflow than the shinier side, which can further aggravate the which can be further aggravated with the help of the seam. This extra turbulent airflow is not as sticky as the turbulent airflow on the other side. It shears off, meaning that at the point of separation from the boundary layer towards the front of the ball, as a consequence, the air pressure on the seam side is now relatively higher than on the shiny side. This makes the ball swing on the side opposite to the seam. To aid reverse swing, bowlers also try to ensure that the shiny side is slightly heavier than the other side. This gives the ball a natural tendency to fall in that direction. Cricketers have traditionally used saliva to shine one side of the ball, smoothen the surface, and make it tad heavier on the side. The idea is to create as great of a contrast between the two sides of the ball as possible, which helps generate reverse swing. Cricketers have chewed on all kinds of mints and candy to aid the shining process. Sugar saliva is heavier and thus considered more effective for shining the cricket ball. Can something else be used as saliva in place? In theory, yes, but saliva is the most readily accessible shining agent that works the way cricketers want it to. Take sweat, for example. Rubbing the ball with sweat is legal, but sweat is not as good as polishing agents as saliva, presumably because it does not contain mucus. Moreover, the ball tends to soak up sweat. Too much sweat can soften the ball, which is not something ballers want. Softer balls do not bounce as much, they do not turn as quickly to retain much pace after pitching. In short, they are easier for a batter to deal with. Then there is a fact that unlike saliva, sweating is condition dependent. Players simply do not sweat enough in cold conditions or for it to be an effective shining substance. Other surfaces like Vaseline also have been touted, although they are not as effective. Notably, Vaseline is lighter than sweat. As former Indian pacer Ashish Nehra once said, Vaseline can help keep the shine, but it does not make the ball heavier on one side. Swing refers to lateral movement of cricket ball in the air before it leaves the surface. March 7 marks the first Friday of Ramzan or Ramadan, the Islamic holy month. After spending dawn to dusk around observing a roza or a ritual fast, Muslims around the world breaks their fast with iftar during Ramzan. The word iftar is derived from an Arabic term which refers to the breaking of the fast. Iftar or iftari is the evening meal eaten immediately before the evening namaz and comes at the end of the fasting day. Iftar is one of the two meals eaten by people who fast during Ramzan, the other being shehri, that is eaten before dawn. There are no set rules for the food items that should be consumed during iftar, with people consuming whatever locally available and popular. However, the Prophet Muhammad is believed to have broken his fast with dates, and so they are popular and recommended choice for many. The meal is often eaten with family, friends, and larger community. Charity or providing iftar for the needy is another aspect of the meal. The process of fasting is intended to remind the faithful that that God has that everything one has is given by God. Iftar is the time to express gratitude to Allah for the sustenance provided and reflect on all the other blessings one enjoys in life. The fast and the breaking it with only one meal is also meant to inculcate disciplines and self-control so that one is mindful of what consumes and enjoys and can find strength within to observe all the tenets of Islam. Iftar is often a community affair with people eating after together or sending food to each other and the needy. It is part of the shared experience of obeying demands of Allah, promoting a feeling of kinship, of being part of a larger whole. In 2023, Iftar was inscribed in UNESCO's representative list of intangible cultural heritage site of humanity. UNESCO's website says the evening prayer is followed by activities such as praying ceremonies, music, storytelling, games, preparing and serving traditional and local meals, and marriage arrangements. For communities, it often takes the form of gathering or meals, strengthening family and community ties, and promoting charity, solidarity, and social exchange. The ceremonies and rituals related to iftar are also practiced by people who do not necessarily fast during the month of Ramadan. The knowledge and skills are typically transmitted within families through oral instruction, observation, and participation, and children and youth are often interested with preparing components of traditional meals. Study helps gene present in mice may help arrest cognitive decline. Researchers have found a gene in mice that rejuvenates in brain. Iftar is often a community affair with people eating together. Iftar is the evening meal eaten immediately before the evening namaz and comes at the end of the fasting day, and the other being Sehri, that is even eaten before dawn. On health, momentum 3B for overcoming entrenched obstacle in routine immunization. Goal is to strengthen immunization programs. $20 million. Research impact saturation and epidemic control. Suvasi support to water and sanitation in India. Environment strengthening landscape management and conservation. Scaling up early learning. If energy, South Asia Regional Energy Partnership. Oran Research Labs, etc. Members of both parties have expressed worry about Trump's outrageous parroting of the Russian line on Ukraine. They are likely to be even more upset when Musk cuts reach their states and when record-breaking measles outbreak happen. This refers to the editorial Crime and Accountability. Sarpanch Santosh Deshmukh was subjected to brutal torture. All Deshmukh did was to raise his voice against extortion in a wind energy project. This horrific evidence that surfaced in the form of pictures and videos catalyzed Minister Dhananjay Munde's resignation under the pretext of ill health. The fact that the murder occurred merely 5 days after his appointment as Food and Civil Supplies Minister is a grave and alarming disclosure. The underlying issue necessitates various reforms to curb rampant lawlessness, which should include limiting the overreach of MPs and MLAs over law enforcement. This refers to the editorial aiming high when the editorial correctly asserts that India's path to sustainable growth requires extensive reforms by both the center and state governments. These must extend beyond purely economic measures and avoid over reliance on per capita income as an indicator of progress. It can mask significant income inequality as evidenced by Oxfam report which revealed that 73% of wealth generated accrued to the top 1% of the population in 2017, while the bottom 70 million saw only 1% increase. Further, India risked falling into the middle income trap due to premature shift from agriculture to services, bypassing the crucial development of a robust industrial and manufacturing sector. This refers to the report Tamil Nadu parties oppose limitation, delimitation. The 84th Amendment forced the Lok Sabha seats till 2026 for good reasons. The Modi government would do well to take the leaf out of Vajpayee government's book so that no state feels wrong or alienated. The pro rata representation on the basis of population will be heavily skewed towards the states that have seen uncontrolled population growth. The next 30 years will give sufficient times for the state in the Hindi belt to implement population control measures. This refers to the article at Global Crossroads, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's decision to set aside the unfortunate events at the Oval Office and take up step in the direction of peace is sensible and diplomatic. Even though US President Donald Trump belligerence during the meeting took diplomacy to a new low. He was correct about Russia-Ukraine war. While there is no space for a breach of territorial integrity and sovereignty, the solution to lasting peace lies in addressing the cause of Ukraine's aspirations for NATO membership and Russia's concerns about the alliance's expansions. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has opposed a three-language formula. Does it reflect genuine concerns? Was centers Hindi push, or is it the revival of a political spectre? A big leap for an imposition that the third language being mooted is not Hindi does not fool anyone. Leader statement, government spending highlight true intent. Education is the beating heart of Dravidian political philosophy. It is vital to movement's core principles of self-respect, social justice, and equitable access. Given education's prior exclusivity, the first Justice Party government of the Madras Presidency sowed the seeds for universal education by legislating compulsory elementary education for boys and girls in 1920. A compulsory two-language formula, our mother tongue, Tamil and global link language, English, is in effect for decades, reflects these values. All parties that originated here have vociferously and repeatedly aligned with this formula, and it has produced great results with high literacy rates and a higher education enrollment ratio of 47% compared to the national average of 28.4%. A compulsory two-language formula and our mother tongue Tamil and global link language English in effect for decades reflect these values. All parties that originated here have vociferously and repeatedly aligned with this formula, with higher literacy rates and high education enrollment of 47% compared to the national average of 28.4%. Tamil Nadu stands tall in India. Our educational and consequent economic success are documented and quantifiable. To be clear, this compulsory formula is only for the curriculum set by the State Board of Education and in schools run by the state government. Tamil Nadu's commitment to educational choice is evident. Even the Dakshin Bharat Hindi Prachar Sabha maintains its headquarters in Hindi, Chennai. It is in this context that one must view the extra-constitutional conditions imposed belatedly on Tamil Nadu by the Union government for the release of our state's allocation of Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan funds. The thread stated in public by Union Minister of Education is simple: implement NEP full. It is in this context that one must view the extra-constitutional conditions imposed belatedly on Tamil Nadu by the Union government for the release of our state's allocation of the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan funds, approximately 2000 crore. Adding a third layer would impose cost with no evidence-based benefits to justify such curriculum dilution. In large parts of the country, even two languages have not been implemented adequately. In if they have been, we would have had English as a link language. We wouldn't having we wouldn't be having this debate over 75 years after independence. Tamil Nadu stands tall in India with education enrollment ratio of 47%, national average is 28.4%, 28.4%. Our love is not just to manifest in our eagerness to preserve the world's oldest living language, but also in our urgency to keep it refreshed to suit the changing times. We have undertaken many efforts to ensure our language remains vibrant and ever youthful, from hosting a Kani Tamil Manadu conference on Tamil computing way back in 1999. We ran in second iteration in 2024 and digitizing ancient texts to creating Tamil LLMs. The threat stated in public by the Union Minister of Education is simple: implementing the NEP in full through legislation in Tamil Nadu's assembly. including the compulsory three-language formula or center, will not release Parliament-approved pre-allocated funds. Given the lack of single example to show how this will improve, comes we we see the threat as pure political extortion. Such an attempt to force the will of the union government on Tamil Nadu's elected legislature is flagrant violation of the constitution. In fact, adding a third language would impose cost not only in staffing and logistics but also by overloading students' learning capacity with no evidence-based benefits to justify such curriculum dilution. In large parts of the country, even two languages have not been implemented adequately. For if they had been, we would have already had English as a link language, and we would not have been having this debate over 75 years after independence. This is also the justified fear that introduction of a third language corrodes the use of native language, sometimes to the point of its practical demise, hiding behind the fig leaf of the idea that the third language being mooted is not Hindi does not fool anyone. A cursory look at the Home Ministry statements every Hindi day and the multifold spending on Hindi promotion as opposed to other regional languages will highlight a true intent. The threat is consistent with Centre's unconstitutional approach of using any means as a weapon for political agenda beyond the politicization of fund allocation and adding politically self-serving last-minute conditions for the disbursement. Most troubling examples are unprecedented use of Article 239B to constrain state borrowing beyond respective FRBM equivalent legislation, illegal, covert coercing of bilateral and multilateral lending agencies to adopt lending constraints to non-BJP government ruled states, and worst of all, the intentional appointment of obdurate governors to thwart the work of elected governments, as our chief minister has stated. The Tamil people can never be cowed down by such threats. History teaches lessons. Money alone cannot meaningfully alter employment or growth rates if the prevailing social structures are not conducive to such improvements. For example, the bias towards Gujarat by the current government through the creation of free trade zones like the Gift City and the allocation of mega projects have not resulted in any noticeable improvement in either employment or the quality of life for the average resident of Gujarat. People of ancient cultures like Tamils cannot be subjugated nor their identity altered by coercive actions. Previous attempts at Hindi imposition were catastrophic failures. In Tamil Nadu language, January 25 is designated as a language martyrs day when we pay our respects to those who lost their lives in the struggle to preserve Tamil and oppose language imposition. We will not surrender our linguistic rights now or ever and thereby allow their ultimate sacrifices to have been in vain. Protect language, don't politicize it. Chief Minister Stalin's attitude is a recipe for turning diversity into decisiveness. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin allegation that Hindi has been eating smaller languages like Maithili, Santhali, etc. is false and a blatant attempt to pit one language group against each other. It's vote bank politics in the name of language. Note that no one from these smaller groups, but rather the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, is expressing concern about their languages facing an existential threat. Stalin has difficult election to face in about a year, and an issue as an emotive as language is low-hanging fruit. However, while the argument being made is unconvincing, the manner in which he has taken up the issue is highly irresponsible. Happily, Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan has made it clear that there is no question of imposing Hindi, and a three-language formula only promotes learning as an additional language besides English and the mother tongue. CM Stalin has also talked of a monolithic Hindi identity. However, no monolithic identity could really be officially established in any language group. In Maharashtra, Karnataka, and even Tamil Nadu, people in different regions speak different versions of the language. While no regional government can avoid in the standardization of their respective language, regional variations are bound to be there. There can be no imposition. In this regard, resilience and accommodation are fundamental features of Indian culture, and straitjacketing is neither practicable nor desirable. But since Stalin has raked up this issue, it is pertinent to ask what linguistic groups feel threatened. There are at least four key factors behind the existential challenge that languages apparently face. These are linguistic colonialism and its sinister impact, changing the ideas of social and cultural status. Inertia on the part of language warriors and politics and policies about promoting or preventing the development of any language. During the Mughal era, Urdu and Farsi made inroads into many Indian languages. The level of adulteration was so alarming that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj had to personally monitor the creation of a Marathi Vyavhar Kosh or a dictionary of Marathi administrative terms. With this initiative, he ensured that foreign languages do not have place of pride at the cost of indigenous languages. Later British rule ensured that needless but all-pervading domination of English and prevented the development of several Indian languages as mediums of acquiring knowledge. Urdu and Farsi made inroads into many Indian languages. The level of adulteration was so alarming that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj had to personally monitor the creation of a Marathi Raj Vyavhar Kosh or dictionary of Marathi administrative terms. With this initiative, he ensured that foreign languages do not take have place of pride at the cost of indigenous languages. As English was the language of the ruling class, speaking it became a symbol of higher social status, leading to an inferiority complex among those speaking their mother tongue. Sadly, save for a few regional languages like Tamil, Bengali, Malayalam, and some northeastern languages, most Indian language groups have inadvertently submitted to the status symbol phenomena and paved way for linguistic adulteration. Many urban dwellers with their mother tongues, being Hindi, Punjabi, Marathi, or Kannada today, are seen using more English colloquially, ignorant of their rich linguistic traditions. Many believe that their own languages are poor in vocabulary, and this is more sinister impact of linguistic colonialism. While give and take between languages is not entirely preventable and undesirable. The cause of particular language is well served only when the process of coining new words and terms thoughtfully and utilizing them keenly are carried out. The natural fusion of languages is not the same thing as needless adulteration. What makes way for linguistic adulteration is the popular mindset where using everything foreign is considered synonymous with embracing social status, and hence the delinking of languages from social status has to be given top priority if our mother tongue has to be flourished. Languages flourish only when they are used. A few years ago, Kazakh people demanded Hindi movies with Kazakh subtitles and not Russian ones. Similarly, South Asian leader has expressed the desire to read Gita Rahasya of Lokmanya Tilak provided it is made available in the language of their own country and not in English. In this context, Maharashtra CM Devendra Fadnavis moved to ask officials to ensure that Marathi is given a place of prominence as a language of statecraft is welcome. The third life-threatening factor of mother tongue is the inertia of their progeny. Many language warriors have not understood the importance of government effort to provide medical and engineering education in mother tongues. If our languages have to compete with English and other global counterparts, they have to create meaningful terminologies for new and emerging technologies. Also, language warriors must understand that language is the vehicle of culture. When language is threatened, the sustenance of the culture of the respective language group becomes harder. The antidote for politics of language is well laden down formal policy of language development for holistic and sustained development of any language. Governments and language groups will have to fight together on multiple fronts, from education to entertainment, from literate to libraries, and from event management to election campaigns. The emphasis on using mother tongues, regional languages alone will help them not just sustain but also to emphasis on using mother tongue will alone will help them not just sustain but also grow. CM Stalin must understand that raking up anger in the name of language is much easier than actually taking up the cause of any language. He must remember that politicizing language matters is a partisan manner in fact hampers the cause of the respective language. Such politicization is a recipe for converting diversity into decisiveness. In Bangladesh, Jatiya Nagarik Party enters at a time when dust hasn't settled and people seek stable governance. Following the Liberation War in 1971, a secular nation state based on linguistic factionalism correction, linguistic nationalism was established in Bangladesh. It was in many ways a rejection of the religious nationalism that countries continues to define Pakistan. Since its inception, however, has navigated a dual identity where Bengali linguistic nationalism has coexisted, often uneasily, with the influence of Orthodox Islam in its political culture. Since Sheikh Hasina's ouster in August 2024, the latter has been regaining prominence. A stark example of this was visible in an incident in January when a women's football match was cancelled after students from religious school vandalized the venue. Earlier in November, a mystic sect promoting Hindu religious inclusivity had to cancel the music festival after Islamic threats. Post Hasina, emboldened Islamic groups have been returning to the mainstream after facing crackdown for years. Against the backdrop and ahead of the elections expected to take place this year, the student led movement that spearheaded the protest that led the Hasina's downfall has launched the Jatiya Nagrik Party or the National Citizens Party. The National Citizens Party promise of a second republic reflects a determination to reshape Bangladesh's political framework. The immediate challenge for the country is safeguarding its democratic credentials, which hinge on free and fair elections. Hasina's Awami League has been isolated. However, the support that the interim government initially enjoyed has begun to fade, as Muhammad Yunus now faces pressure to deliver tangible results. Since Hasina's ouster, Bangladesh has been gripped by political turbulence and economic hardship, along with deteriorating law and order situation. The NCP is entering the political scene at a time when the hasn't fully settled and people seek strong and stable governance. The transformation from an anti establishment movement into a mainstream force is never easy. The NCP has made a strong start with its display of religious inclusivity at its rally, where recreations from both Quran and Bhagavad Gita sought to deliver a message of unity significant given concerns over the security of Hindu minorities in post Hasina Bangladesh. If it pursues multiculturalism and secularism, it could form a formidable threat to the right wing Bangladesh Nationalist Party. The true test of the NCP will be whether it can fight for a more just, inclusive, and democratic Bangladesh. To say that we don't know with the entire certainty where we are going is a proof of lucidity. The target is unreachable, we are surrounded by infinity. Himmat Bhai's Ghari studio in Delhi, where I first met him, was a world of his own. His modernism was intuitive, not theoretical, where one he once described as a leap from the familiar to the unknown. Defining aspects of Himmat Bhai's artistic ethos was his deep love for clay. His drawings were not blueprints for his sculptures but extensions of its exploration of form and movement. His impact on Indian art is undeniable. He was an artist, admired not just for what he created, but for the way he thought and worked. Stalin fires first shot, but delimitation should be framed as North versus South or a show of report cards. That's the challenge. The current flaring of the debate on delimitation takes place in a fraught political context. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has fired the first shot where the rumble of next year's election is already beginning to make itself heard. By all accounts, Chief Minister Stalin is laying claim to the leadership of a pushback by the South against a BJP led and North dominated centre on all India projects ranging from entrance exam NEET to the NET to the three language formula on delimitation. A state level all party meeting called by him in Tamil Nadu has led to a resolution that asks centre to extend the 1971 census based delimitation framework for another 30 years beyond 2026 to ensure fair representation for the states that have effectively controlled their population. Stalin's moves also coincide with a perceived BJP drive to spread into states of the South, having reiterated its dominance in the country's north in the recent polls. They seek to stoke apprehensions, real and imagined, about Hindutva's homogenizing ambitions. Political context that encourages the framing of the issue is in warring specters and tidy binaries. The thing about specters is that they seldom withstand a reality check. For instance, North and South are internally differentiated, and the claims of a better developed Hindi South getting short shrift in comparison of a less developed North are reductive. They paper over many vital geographical, historical, political, and policy factors that underline the phenomena of some states overtaking others. The BJP's bid to expand into the country's south also means a nuancing and leavening, and even softening of its political project. Similarly, the pitting of representation against federalism deserves closer scrutiny. At one level, it borrows the majoritarian arguments that have become the common sense on other issues, for instance, the demand of caste census. Congress leader leading the charge has been raising its head. But what needs to be kept in mind is this: even as the Constitution guarantees of political equality is shored up by the principle of one person, one vote, the constitutional letter and spirit also holds up out protections for minorities not necessarily defined by religion and safeguards for federalism. That is, it also addresses predicaments in ways that don't go by mechanical application of the majority principle alone. Clearly, a solution needs to be found to the delimitation puzzle. In the past, that the the can has been kicked down the road. Stalin wants that to happen again. The challenge is to forge a new path through deliberation and dialogue, which ensures that no one loses and everyone wins. It goes far beyond carving out new constituencies. Only one thing is certain, that this is not something that should be resolved by an order imposed by the center from above. To endure, it will require a federalism that's collaborative and cooperative, not competitive. Every political party, every citizen has a stake in this, for it's about reinforcing the very bedrock of democracy, representation in both number and spirit. Seize the delimitation. Let's expand the scope of democracy to incorporate federal interest over and above mere numbers. Delimitation debate has begun to make news, and like most political controversies, it skirts around fundamental issues. These remarks underscore the better performance of the states of South India both in Human Development Index and economic parameters. The blatant attempt by Center and Hindutva votaries to push Hindi is another irritant, and that has reignited North-South conflict. Possibility of next delimitation exercise and the hanging sword of a mechanical application of the population criteria that will reduce the current strength of the South has further fueled tensions. Irrationality of the more children plan Tamil Nadu Chief Minister has made specific plea to freeze the current strength of each state in the Lok Sabha. In effect, this demand seeks to continue the earlier policy of avoidance. For a genuine debate on the delimitation question, it is necessary to avoid two tempting tropes. First, there is a temptation among politicians from the South to set an alarm about domination of North India over the South India. It is true that certain North Indian imagination that is circulated in the idea of Indian nation, but that has nothing to do with relative strength of the states in parliament. Already the Lok Sabha has larger representatives coming from the states of North India. Whether any just it is not clear whether any injustice to the South has happened on account of numeric disadvantage. The North-South prism is likely to persuade people and parties of the North to push for delimitation that would give them an advantage. So, counter mobilization in the North can make it impossible to arrive at a negotiated settlement. Second, in the present day party political arena, there is temptation to see the issue through a prism of BJP's dominance. While the BJP and Hindutva historically always saw the northern normative universe as constitutive of national identity, and while they have been uncomfortable with India's pluralism and in particular with Dravidian claims, it will be a mistake to posit that current delimitation within an anti-BJP framework. BJP will be pulled internally in contrary direction. In particular, when the BJP is poised to expand in the south, it will not openly counter the claims of southern states. How then one should address this vexed issue? At one extreme, an argument may be made that if population is the basis of representation, then there is nothing wrong in the skewed strength of the states. This is formalist democratic argument. Such an argument may also appear to have constitutional legitimacy because this is how constitution would expect the delimitation process to unfold. In a draft paper for Pune International Center, Sanjeer Alam and I have argued that India needs to transcend from the formalist argument and employ democracy in a broader sense to inform the method of delimitation. Following the leads of Milan Vaishnav and Alistair Macmillan, we argue that there are two routes to resolving this issue. While the idea of reforming Rajya Sabha is indeed useful, it would require greater consensus and more wide-ranging amendments to the constitution, whereas there is more merit in exploring another possibility of expanding Lok Sabha, where the current strength of any state will not be adversely affected, even as more populous states will get additional seats. On the surface, it's just like a mere compromise, but in doing so, the representation debate can be taken further. Constitution does maintain the application of democratic principle as the basis of delimitation, but we need to pause and ask what this principle means. So far as simplistic understanding has informed the debate and apprehensions around the issue, but given the ideological context of diversity in crafting Indian nation state and later political ethos of consolidating democratic politics, it is necessary that being democratic must be understood and also federal. As a matter of fact, delimitation exercises already appreciated this in an implicit manner. Allocation of seats to states would be begin by first allocating a minimum representation to smaller states to ensure that however small a state in terms of size and population, it will have at least one member in the Lok Sabha. In doing so, the principle of state-based representation overrode the principle of population. It would be a great step if leaders like CM Stalin seize the moment and expand the scope of democracy to incorporate federal interest above and over mere numbers. In other words, proposal to expand the size of Lok Sabha and to ensure that no state loses its current strength should not be seen only as a political prudent step, but as a step to enrich the idea of democracy in the Indian context. We argue that there are two routes to resolving the issue, not necessarily mutually exclusive. While the idea of reforming Rajya Sabha is indeed useful, it would require greater consensus. The other possibility of expanding the Lok Sabha with current strength of any state will not be adversely affected, even as more populous states will get additional seats. On the surface, it does look like a mere compromise, but in doing so, the representation debate can be taken further. The Constitution does mandate the application of democratic principle, but we need to pause and ask what this principle means. So that's all in this one. See you in the next. There is no freedom of religion without a government that is free from religion.